All right, welcome everybody to a product spotlight where Dave Cooper Live, we bring you the people and the products and the process, enabling us all to build it better. Many of you wonder why I love what I do. And our next guest is no different. He just asked me before the show. It's because I am constantly inspired by all of the good work you are doing, the innovation, the creativity, the tenacity and passion shared by each of you working harder to build it better. This year, I had the terrific honor of moderating several panel discussions and learning labs at the International Builders Show. They were all great. I mean, better than great. But the 412 pitch, a startup kickstart learning lab, wow, just wow. 12 of the most innovative companies attending the big show for the very first time each had only 4 minutes to pitch their mind-blowing ideas of how they were going to blow up the home building industry. There were robots, software solutions, marketplaces, and even a gong. That's right, yours truly had a gong. But today I am extremely pleased to host our next guest. This team is pioneering a fundamentally new approach to solving climate change. They are not trying to make the problem less bad or a bit more sustainable. Their goal is to provide the solution. The kicker? They see a world built from grass, a world where buildings no longer cause climate change, but are central to the solution, where they are stronger, more durable, and more affordable. Seriously. Here to reveal their vision of the truth, please welcome Josh Dorfman, the co-founder and CEO of Planted, transforming perennial grass into structural materials without cutting down a single tree. But we couldn't do all of this without our sponsors. So before we bring Josh in, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. And we got a breaking news announcement right after that. Stay tuned. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies to succeed where others have failed. Are you looking to start a factory, optimize your existing factory, streamline your production, or take your team to the next level? Whatever your needs are, Forward has a solution for you. Reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. Halleck LTD has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for off-site modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, halleckltd.com. All right. Thank you to those sponsors. And like I said, we have breaking news. How about if I told you somebody over the next 20 plus years is going to be investing $50 million? That's right, $50 million into the logistical and transportation solutions that the modular and offsite industry needs. Here's a quick message. And yes, they are a sponsor of ours, but this is big news and this is worth sharing. Here's Carson Holmquist.
At Stream Modular, our mission is to accelerate the adoption of modular construction, which is a big, ambitious goal. You may be thinking, how can a transportation company play a significant role in increasing overall adoption of modular construction? We believe that transportation is one of the big hurdles in this industry. It's too expensive, it's too slow, it's unreliable, and we know a massive investment in the logistics portion of this industry can pay huge dividends to the experience that general contractors and developers have when using modular construction technology. We're excited to announce a $50 million investment over the next 25 years in building out the solutions and the infrastructure and new innovations that have to come to fruition in order to remove those hurdles that exist today and that will exist in the future. Every year, we're going to have tangible goals and investments we're making to make sure that factories can operate at their highest potential and their highest efficiency to make sure that the promise of modular construction is actually realized and the industry will grow as a percentage of market share, which is the ultimate goal. We know that this is the best technology. We know eventually it's going to be the dominant form of construction. We're trying to bring that inevitable future closer to the present by investing in the industry. So we're excited to be a part of this, and you'll see a lot of new innovations coming from Stream Modular in the near future and for the next 25 years.
How awesome is that? Like I said, this is the time for us to build it better. People are putting their money where their mouths are. They're growing things like we're going to talk about next. But I just want to say to Carson Holmquist and the team of Stream Logistics, that is awesome. I appreciate you pledging that to our industry. We are here to build it better. And our next guest, who we're going to bring on right now, Josh Dorfman, is also here to build it better. And you better be careful because you might be pulling the grass out of your front yard soon. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the show. I'm super excited about today's conversation. But Josh, before we get started here, right, we always ask our guests that we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Don't leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call a family member and bring them on the show. And that might get a little embarrassing for you, especially since you're a guy that plays with grass. Perennial grass, that is. Anyhow, Josh, listen, you got 2 minutes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got from where you are as a child to where you are today, and then we'll hop into planted.
Sure. So I grew up in Westchester County, outside of New York City. And when I went to college, I was really encouraged by my mom in particular to spend time overseas. So I'd studied in France as an undergrad and came back my senior year for finish up and was kicking around for a thesis and got very interested in China and was really thinking about a career in diplomacy. So I got a job teaching English in China. This was the mid 90s. Went over, was in the city of Nanjing, teaching English, learning as much as I could about the culture, and was fortunate to get a part-time job that became a full-time job working for a company that hopefully some of you may remember called Kryptonite Bike Locks, or potentially still have one. And that first U-shaped lock was being made in Nanjing, China. They had moved their production there. So I went to work for Kryptonite. Eventually I became their China business manager. We opened several more factories. And through that process, I really started thinking, first, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's a billion people riding bikes here. I have the best bike lock in the world. I'm going to sell in this market and probably retire by the time I'm 30. And that didn't exactly work out. But the reason why it didn't work out is because I started seeing all of these bridges and tunnels and highways and everything we know about how fast China developed. You could start seeing that 25 years ago. And through a series of events, it just occurred to me, here's a billion people riding bicycles, but one day there's going to be a billion people here driving cars. And I thought, I don't know anything about global warming. I wasn't raised as an environmentalist, but I suspect this is probably going to be somewhat problematic if you think about emissions and carbon dioxide emissions and what that might mean for the world, anything about India and Russia, Eastern Europe, and the rest of the world that was developing so fast. So that really got me thinking when I came back to the States, how could I play a role in this transition that I felt needed to take place from what I would say, from a perspective of how do you maintain and increase quality of life and encourage that to happen around the world, but do so in a way where we start to bring our lifestyles and more macro, our economies into balance with nature. And that really led me on a journey that I've been on for most of the past 20 years to really think that through and harness business as a tool to create the kinds of products and solutions that can help consumers and therefore economies bring their lifestyles into balance with nature. And so we can all, again, pursue our greatest lives, our greatest lifestyles, and do it in a way that really propels our civilization forward. So there's
I love it because I did even before the show. I said, Josh, I mean, who sits around and looks at grass and says, how am I going to turn this into a product that we can build with, that we can pretty much grow anywhere around the world? It grows fast. It's sustainable. It eats carbon, right? I mean, now we were looking at buildings that could eat carbon. When did the idea first come to your mind that this is what you were going to do? And then how do you figure that out?
Yeah, those are big questions. So I started my first sustainable furniture company, again, focused on modern design, but thinking this through about 20 years ago. So I was working with materials like boards or panels made from bamboo, from other alternative materials. I was used to thinking about these sorts of alternative materials, alternative biomass, alternative feedstock, so to speak. And that was something that I stayed passionate about kind of through my career. I started another sustainable furniture company right before the pandemic. And so we were manufacturing in North Carolina. I was really interested in domestic manufacturing, shrinking supply chains. So this was always been, for me, thinking about how do you make these businesses, How do you drive mass adoption? How do you make them as big as possible?
Right.
During the pandemic, just like the industry itself, I started to encounter supply chain constraints, quality going down, price going up. And in that moment, I connected in with my co-founders who had been at SpaceX, and they led a team at SpaceX that was in charge of keeping astronauts on the Dragon spacecraft alive in space, basically in a small SUV for a for a fair amount of time. And that's about making sure that chemical balance, right? That chemical equation is, it reflects, enabling life, right? So when you kind of extend that logic for Nate and Wada, it was not a far leap to say, well, gosh, how do we do the same thing for Spaceship Earth for the 8 billion people on this planet? We put those ideas together and Planted was born.
So it was born out of figuring out how to keep astronauts alive on a spaceship.
Well, SpaceX guys think about the future in ways that most people do not, right?
Yeah.
So, because their experience is just extremely different.
Right.
And so there was a thought of, well, you have carbon dioxide, you have this resource in the atmosphere. It's in the wrong place, right? It's in a place where it's not doing anyone good. In fact, it's harmful from a climate change causing perspective, right? Mm-hmm. But it's there and it's basically free. So if you can figure out a way to pull it out of the atmosphere, right, and do that in an efficient way, do that in a affordable way or an effective way, then you've got a resource that is everywhere around the globe. You just have to figure out how to harness it, turn it into something that's useful. And again, so there's a whole chain of thought that went into getting this eventually to be a material. But it really kind of went like this. If we could identify a biomass that could grow much faster than trees, and like you talked about, Dave, just pure photosynthesis, right? Like harness nature to take carbon out of the atmosphere. So something that goes much faster than trees, therefore is taking out much more carbon, let's say, faster, more efficiently from an acreage perspective, from a land use perspective. And then if that biomass were strong enough or had the performance characteristics where you could turn it into something useful, what would you turn it into? Now, with the SpaceX-led engineering and production team, you make some assumptions about your ability to build a factory or build a production capability that can beat the competition, just like SpaceX beat Boeing and others to space. And so we made the assumption from the beginning, we have to continue to prove it out, that we could build a better factory, right? We could build a better production technology if we had the right thing growing in the field. And once we kind of thought that through, we said, all right, well, let's get after this. Let's go talk to builders and say, hey, we can build anything that's made out of engineered wood materials today. What would you like us to build? And by the way, like, what problems do you want us to solve with the material itself or that product you're using on a job site? And that led us down a whole series of discovery, of eventually innovation. But that's really how we drive this. It's very practical, right? We call it useful carbon removal. How can we take carbon out of the atmosphere and turn it into something that someone's going to want to use and pay us for it?
Sure. All right. So there's the idea. There's the concept. We got the team in place. How do you then actually harvest the material? And, how do you come up with, because it's not just buying machines that do this, right? You had to actually come up and invent the equipment that is being used to make the products as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. So if you think about what we're doing, right, we look at this industry, we look at construction materials, we look at the materials that are used for home building as an example, and you can dissect that essentially into 3 industries. You have the managed timberland, right, that industry, monoculture tree farms. You have the companies that actually build the machines. That's basically 2 companies in Germany that have consolidated that industry. Everybody who's making panels or engineered tube basically buys their machines from these 2 companies. They've essentially cornered the market, and you are beholden to that technology, whether it's good, bad, legacy, you need it all. Like, that's what you're getting, right? And then you have the factories, and you run the where you're going to produce your panels or again your other engineered materials. What we felt was, if we're really going to be able to drive this innovation, we have to take on the whole value chain. We have to own the biomass source. We have to build the machines. We have to run the factories, because no one's as crazy as we are, and no one's going to come on board like, oh yeah, this is a great idea, guys, because we're also not the first one to do it, right? We just have to figure out the way to put the pieces together to really make it work. And that's why we do lean in and say, you know what, we think there's an opportunity to build our own machines. Obviously, it's our own intellectual property, but by doing that, you can really change what a factory looks like. You can make it modular. You can take cost out. You can put that factory in places where you just can't put a giant mill that's making, engineered wood lumber.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Love it. Love it. All right, everybody. If you're just joining us, we are live with Josh Dorfman. That's right. Planted. We're turning grass into lumber and building materials. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on. And if you're not following us on YouTube, go there and follow us. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button. And if you're not following Planted, you're wrong. You need to be following Planted and everything they're doing, because they are out to change how we build from the ground up, from the dirt up. Right? From the photosynthesis up. I don't know. I can keep going with that one.
Field to factory and beyond.
Field to factory. There you go. That's all. That's a new t-shirt for Planted right there. Field to factory. All right, Josh. So let's talk about it. All right. So you put the team together, you come up with the idea, you come up with the concept. I am sure there's a whole lot of behind the scenes engineering and back and forth to figure out how these machines are going to take grass and turn it into, sheet goods, 2x4s, any of the things that you're looking at or are making. What was that process like? And did you find it hard, or did you find it not so hard because you had the right team?
It's always hard. I think when you have the right team, and again, I'm going to go to what it means to have a SpaceX-led team. People come to our facility when we started. If you came today, you would see us have built machines that can produce full-size 4x8 panels. This is our final kind of dev stage before we go in and build what we will call the production technology for the factory of the future. And so when you think SpaceX team, you think, oh, I can't wait to, this is going to be super high tech. And the technology is complex, but getting there, we follow something. There's also this notion of SpaceX scrappy. And so, when we had to design an initial mixer, right? Like, how do you take this grass? How do you put enough resin on it or glue in the appropriate quantity, put it together, but not too much, not too little, and then get it ready to go into a press. And so we would bring in early customers, bring in investors, and what they would see initially was a pickle barrel, a 50-gallon pickle barrel that we probably bought, I think, for $40, running on a treadmill that we purchased off Craigslist. So we attached some wheels to the pickle barrel. You put the treadmill on fat burn, so the fat burn setting, and then that starts spinning the pickle barrel, and you get just the exact right mix and percentage of resin to grass to be able to press your panels. And so the way we think about designing our machines and innovation, and again, this really comes out of this SpaceX approach, is, design and build what's necessary, but nothing more, right? Don't over-engineer, because that's so crucial for how you take out cost and how you design in the most efficient way. And it's really 1,000 small innovations that ultimately get you to that ultimate innovation, which is that more cost-effective manufacturing approach.
I think I'll just leave the show to you, Josh. You are an expert on radio and shows like this, so maybe I'll just put you full screen and just let you keep going. I'm just going to listen because I think this is actually fascinating. So, all right, we got the machines in place. You put the team in place. You got the SpaceX thinking working for you. Now there's cultivating the fastest growing perennial grasses on Earth. So it's just not taking grass. You guys are also working on growing perennial grass faster. Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
So when we started that process, again, the thought process for Planted is, and has been from the beginning, we are going to be biomass agnostic. We have a set of criteria that we need to go out into the field and test and see if we can find something that will grow much faster than trees. So trees basically being the benchmark, right? Can it grow faster than trees? Can it be turned into a high performance material? Can we do it at the right cost? And so, we're leaning into a grass that's a perennial grass. Essentially, it comes, in some respects, it comes up on its own, grows very tall, comes up before the weeds come up. So you don't have to spray as much on it. So not only is that better for the planet, but it also keeps your costs lower. And we've went through a ton of iterations looking at all sorts of different types of agricultural products or feedstock that might do this, from bamboo to all sorts of stuff. The key for us, again, is identifying what matches this criteria, where ultimately we're going to turn it into a building material that builders are not just going to accept, but that they're going to love. Or maybe they won't even know the difference on a job site, right? Maybe it's just a little bit easier, but it works exactly the same. And so, we started, one of our first hires on that side was an agronomist from NC State. We're based here essentially in the Research Triangle. We're here in Durham, North Carolina at present. So we brought on an agronomist to lead this effort for us. We also, and then our next hire, as we were looking, canvassing where are these materials in the world, we brought on a guy that we called affectionately our Indiana Jones. He was responsible for going out into the wilderness and helping us collect different samples and understand what can be cultivated, and really put together a kind of an A team that could help us figure out the right grass. How do you grow it? How do you deliver it to a farmer? And do it in such a way where it's going to be economically beneficial for that farmer. And ultimately, when it comes back to us, enables us to achieve our price point. So it's going to be attractive to that builder on the job site.
Love it. So I don't want to get too far into this. I know you have a short little slide deck presentation. Why don't we hop into that? And if anybody's out there, if you have questions or comments, if you definitely have a question, please put a Q in front of it, because I know there's quite a bit of you out there watching today's show. So we appreciate that. But Josh, let me add this to the screen here for you. And why don't you walk us through what you have?
Sure. So I'll walk you through a few slides that goes to the way we think about our business. I mean, the overriding question for us, and really our mandate for why we exist, is we came together and said, what would be the fastest way to take carbon out of the atmosphere and transform it into useful, durable products? And so again, for us, this is not a science experiment. This is not about a technology where you say we're going to create a big wind tunnel or something and suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and bury it in the ground, and hopefully someone's going to pay us for that with a carbon credit or something that's, maybe has some utility, maybe doesn't. We're going to create a business that fundamentally ends in a product someone's going to pay us for. And so the fastest way to do that, we say, again, let's go out and let's identify a biomass that can grow exceptionally fast. So that's a picture of it that's indicative of the kind of feedstock that we use. You can see it grows exceptionally tall, massive annual yield. It's very strong. So when we actually bring it into our facility and tear it apart and put it back together again, you get building materials starting with structural panels that are stronger, significantly more moisture resistant than the products builders use today. And because these yields are so massive, farmers are really excited about it too. So we have our first farmer who's putting in about 250 acres this spring, which is a former tobacco farmer who's transitioning to this type of product. That's a big opportunity for us in North Carolina that we're excited about. But the other thing that we love about the way we think about our supply chain is, if you're working with trees are in certain places. They're in some respects, they can be pretty far away from where metropolitan centers are, or where the major buildings happening. We can completely rethink supply chains, right? Because we can put this grass, we can partner with farmers much closer to major metropolitan areas. We can put factories in different places, and that's really what you're seeing. And all of that adds up to what we would call unrivaled carbon capture. And carbon capture purely is about how much biomass by weight, really, in some respects, is on the land. So, and that's because that's where the carbon is, right? It's literally in the grass. And so we need to design a process that enables us to get the most off the grass as possible. I'm going to go to the next slide here. And then we need to say, okay, we have all of this grass. It's awesome. We can turn it into a great product. How do we do that? And so how do we do it in a way where, we don't emit a lot of carbon dioxide and pollution, in the process of turning into a finished product, and essentially give all that carbon back, right? We spend all that effort to take it out of the atmosphere. We don't want to have a polluting factory that just spews it up a smokestack right back into the atmosphere, which is how the industry is constituted today. And so we've designed a different system. You can see it there. It's a much smaller footprint. It's not quite a 3D printer, but that is a continuous automated press, which means every minute you will see a full-size 4x8 panel roll off that press. Now, you can think about our factory more like, imagine an empty Amazon warehouse that gets filled, and I'm going to actually skip ahead here for a sec on these slides, that gets filled with these lines in parallel to each other. So what this enables us to do is make one line that's doing full-size 4x8 panels. That same technology on the next line could actually be making engineered 2x4s, right? We could get into engineered lumber. And then for builders who are thinking about mass timber or taller structures made from engineered wood, that next line can be doing cross-laminated timber, and all of that can happen very close to an end customer. But so to come back, just to jump back here, so we start with the fastest grass, then we invent new production technology to turn it into a really good product, and then we actually make that product itself. And so, again, like I said, if you came to our shop today, you'd see full-size panels. They've gone through initial certification. So they've been verified and validated to be able to replace OSB or plywood in roof decking as a start. That's because we're getting ready to do a installation with a builder later, well, I guess probably early spring here in North Carolina, where we're going to put these on a roof as a demonstration, just in our process as we get to market. And fundamentally, that's what we're doing. I mean, it's a very straightforward approach in our view. It's very difficult to do, but the key is to just really keep it simple, stay very focused on what you're doing, and have the right cost structure that enables us to go after the biggest market possible.
The factory itself looks like it's straight out of SpaceX. I mean, that's what the machines look like, you know, like with the LEDs under. I mean, that's probably the cleanest factory I've ever seen. I'm going to have to come there and actually live stream a show from there.
Well, you will definitely have to come live stream a show, and it would be fantastic to host you and show you what we're building. That is definitely the approach. I mean, there's a lot of SpaceX DNA in how we think about our approach to, as I've described, to manufacturing, certainly to the aesthetic, right? You'd sort of look, it definitely has that futuristic, and in some respect, you know, almost rocket ship type aesthetic. That inspires us, right? Because we really do feel that we are building the future. And we feel that fundamentally to create the materials for a world that is going to need more and more materials, right? We're going to keep building. I think it was Bill Gates that, at least I'm pretty sure it gets attributed to him, who had said that, you know, essentially into the foreseeable future, we're going to be building the equivalent of a New York City every 2 weeks.
That's right.
For how much, right? How much? Yep. And when we think about what's happening on managed timberland or monoculture tree farms, those trees are getting thinner. It's more difficult to actually make engineered wood products. If you see a company like Diefenbacher, which is one of the companies that makes machines that the mills buy, they're increasingly marketing the fact that their machines can work with thinner and thinner trees. Now, that may be useful in the short term, but if you need to design machines that work with thinner and thinner trees, that tells you something, you know, extend that trend out into the future. What does that mean when we say, right, like what do monoculture tree farms look like in the future? Can that really take us into the future? We would argue no. And so that's, you know, it informs the aesthetic, it informs our approach. We believe this is, you know, this factory, this feedstock and biomass is how you drive the civilizational change that we need to create.
Sure. I have a comment I want to put up here from Chris Magwood. It says, as soon as they have their verified EPD, it'll be in their beam calculator. Not sure if you know about the beam calculator, but it helps builders and developers figure out, you know, what materials they should be using or not using to reduce the carbon footprint of their homes and what have you. When do you think you'll have certification on it?
Certification will come in a number of stages. So we've gone through, as I mentioned, the IBC certification initially. We'll go through another rounds of certifications once we finish completing this line later this year, right? Because you have to connect your certifications to your production technology. And then once this product gets into market, then we will be able to do the full life cycle analysis, get to the EPDs and deliver exactly to Chris and others the kinds of information they're looking for to make informed choices.
Sure. Josh, tell me, like, I'm looking at this line. How do you actually feed the machine, like the material? Does it come on the conveyor belt? Is this the backside of it we're looking at here on the left?
Yeah, I mean, it will come into the feedstock will come into the factory. Yeah, there are conveyor belts. I mean, there's certain pieces of what we're doing that will look very familiar to people. But really what this is about is, it's not just about how it comes into the factory. You know, fundamentally, what's unique to what we're doing is, you know, we're taking a grass, we're taking this, essentially this cane, and we have to rip it apart and put it back together in a way that gets you to this finished material that is going to delight builders. A lot of those steps are akin to what you would find in a big giant mill, right? That's producing oriented strand board or laminated strand lumber, materials that are widely used today. Some of the steps we can simply take out, and that's some of the ways that we eliminate costs. For example, in most mills, if not all mills that are making an oriented strand board type product, when you get that tree coming to a mill, it's probably about 50% water, right? Trees, those, especially those young trees, are very, very porous. I mean, obviously you know this, but speaking to the audience, so you get a tree coming to the mill, you have to get that water out of the out of that tree, right, out of that sapling to turn, right? And so you need to have these massive furnaces that are run on natural gas. And what the mills actually do is they'll take about 25% of that tree and they'll burn it to run the furnace, right, to dry out the rest of the tree. And so we look at that process and we think two things: gosh, that would really cost a lot of money. Can we design a system that doesn't have to do that? And two, well, geez, there goes those carbon emissions right back into the atmosphere. It would probably be helpful to design a system where we don't have to do that too, right? And so fundamentally, when you think about the production capability, you'll never see a smokestack on our factory. It will look very different because we have to think about the most efficient way to get it into that end product where we can really compete on cost.
So it won't look like Pittsburgh in the 1960s is what you're telling me.
No, but we take a lot of inspiration actually from Pittsburgh, Dave. And one of the things that we're doing now, as we are envisioning what would it mean to build with planted materials, and we're starting with home building, and we're starting with structural panels. We can get, as I mentioned to you, into structural 2x4s. We can get into whole house framing packages. We're also very motivated to think about not just replacing trees, but really to replace steel and concrete, the things that are the great emitters of carbon dioxide on this planet. And that goes to the trend more toward mass timber and other types of building products. So, that's really where we see going as a company as well. We look at Pittsburgh and you think, well, Pittsburgh originally was Steel City, right? But at its time, Steel City was one of the most innovative cities on the planet. You had bridges built from steel. Right. I mean, incredible. So we think, what is the next, not Steel City, but what will be Grass City? And where will that city be built that takes our technology, right, and our inputs and builds that next city in a way because it will be more affordable, more durable, and it will be on the front lines of solving climate change.
Yeah, for sure. I had Jake Harris here says, I had a question from Build Wallet, and he's also a kin from the Carolinas. A shout out to a fellow North Carolina. He said, Q is move fast and fix things a tagline.
Move fast and fix things is our mantra. We came up with it pretty early in the process of what we're trying to accomplish. And the funny thing is that a couple of our angel investors are ex-Facebookers. Of course, Facebook, Zuckerberg was very famous, Mark Zuckerberg, for saying, we're going to move fast and break things. And so we thought, no, we're going to turn that on its head. We're actually going to move fast to try and fix things. And we talked about this mantra on one of our early investor calls, not fully realizing that these two folks from Facebook were on the call. And we got off and we didn't know exactly how they were going to respond. But one of them wrote, it was like, love it. That's the greatest thing I've heard. Keep after it. And so, yeah, that is how we feel. I mean, we do move at a fast pace. And I mean, it does inspire us. It's if it's not on the back of this t-shirt, it was on the back of one of our other t-shirts for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know what, even if to work in a place like that and you look up on the wall and that's what you think, that's what you see, that kind of sets the standard and the culture that you're looking for as well. And culture is everything. And that's what you've already talked about, the way you set up your factory. You have that real modern space look to it, to where you're going to the next level and you are leading innovation. So I think it's very well-rounded and it makes a lot of sense, because the one thing we've learned traveling the world is the most successful factories and companies out there have a very, very strong culture.
Agree with that. And it's something that we, of course, like a lot of other companies are working on regularly. We meet as co-founders every day at the end of the day to talk through where are we from a strategy perspective. The first question we're asking ourselves is, how's the team doing? Right? Is the team, and how's the team doing? Meaning, or have we been clear in our communication to the team? Is it understood where we're going? When we are moving very quickly, is everyone on the same page? And when you're moving so fast, and when you're not just moving fast, but essentially creating an entirely new value chain, that's complicated, right? And there's so much ambiguity. And so, we hold ourselves to a high standard of what we're trying to do and what it means to move fast and fix things and to get everybody marching in tune with us. And that's really a process. I mean, we're not perfect at it. But we work on it all the time because we know that getting this right, like you're saying, empowering the team it's what's going to get us to that finish line.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want to work at a building material supplier or manufacturer when you have a website like this? I saw in the comments, what is your website? So I want to make sure everybody sees it. But you have, I mean, this is an awesome website, by the way. There's some more videos of some of the team there talking. But why wouldn't a young person want to work here? And this is where I'm going with this, right? Because the trades and the workforce that we need today, we got to meet them where they're at. And I think you have met them where they're at, not only on your marketing for your website, but I also think in the factory setup as well. And I think that says a lot to you. Are you finding it hard to hire people?
We find that there's a ton of interest. And I think again, I would attribute a lot of things to a start. I think we're getting better at hiring. We're finding that in some respects, the pipeline is growing. Certainly, we need a lot of engineers. We need some really strong production techs that work with the engineers, build the machines. That pipeline's growing. And I think we're still, we spend a lot of time, again, thinking about company culture. How do we make this a place, even though the mission is incredible and we do believe that people should want to be part of this mission, that still, this is a place where people want to come to work every day. They feel good. They can accomplish their work. And they're around a team that they want to be part of. We really, when we are screening for hires, we spend a lot of time thinking about, does this person fit on the team? And that means they have to be a good team player. They also have to want to be part of a team. And they have to want to hold themselves accountable and be able to hold other team members accountable too. So there's a lot behind that for us.
Yeah, there definitely is. All right, let's get back into the nuts and bolts of this for a few minutes, Josh, while we have a few minutes left here. Structural integrity. You're working on like a plywood or an OSB. What would you call it? It wouldn't be OSB, would it? Or what is it called?
We're working on that too. So we've got a number of months before we come to market. It's not oriented strand board. This is a panel that's not oriented. That's part of its unique nature and part of what we're bringing to the world that's new. So we've really spent a lot of time and continue to spend a lot of time thinking about, well, how do we identify this material in a way that it's readily understood? The innovation is readily understood, and builders know how to spec it and source it and use it on a job site.
And that's it, right? So we're talking about 4x8 sheets now. The structural integrity part of this, and I know hemp, struggles with the same thing. How do you have you figured out a way to get structural integrity to do CLT, to do mass timber, or even to just do a regular 2x4 compressed material? You're going to not tell me anyhow, probably. I'm sure it's proprietary, but have you guys sorted out a way to give it the structural integrity it needs?
The short answer is yes. The short answer is, we've had the panels already certified that they are structural. And that's the key driver for this whole suite of innovations we're trying to bring to market. By making a structural panel at the right price point, we feel like we can go after the biggest opportunity. And so, again, that's for us. Well, someone would say, well, why would you start with a structural panel? Why not do something a little more decorative? We can do that. But hitting a structural product at the right price point, I don't know if I'd say that's the holy grail, but that's been where, people who've come before us have struggled. And we think we have a chance to really nail that and deliver an awesome product. So yeah, structural panels, structural 2x4s, structural cross-laminated timber. A lot of that has been de-risked already. Our R&D path is really strong. So we are pretty clear in what that roadmap can look like for us. It's all about execution. Love it.
I love it. Hey, just a big shout out. I see there's a lot of Stream Logistics teams here, team members here to hear about the $50 million investment that they're looking to put into the industry. So I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody at Stream Logistics. We appreciate you tuning into today's show and commenting. A lot of comments coming through as well. Raymond, hey, I was born in Westchester County too, Josh. Cool stuff. Good to see you, Raymond. Appreciate you joining. So let's wrap up here this in kind of a bit of a bow. One, you're coming to market. When can people expect or have the opportunity to maybe get their hands on some of this product?
So we're going through the next phase of our development. We're going to build this production technology this year. We're going to certify our products this year, and we're going to be in a very strong position to come to market. We have some big announcements we're going to be making over the next couple of months about who those partners are and how we are bringing these panels to market. I think it's going to be really exciting. I think it's going to turn some heads in terms of who we're working with and who's getting on board with carbon negative materials. Ultimately, this is going to be an opportunity for us to partner with home builders, eventually with multifamily commercial builders, but really starting with home builders to together start to build in a way where we can take carbon out of the atmosphere, build affordable, durable homes, and lock that carbon away in the walls and structures of the places where people live, work, and play. And we think what could be more inspiring than that? What could be more worth doing? And so, yeah, more to come, but we're excited about the path to market, and we think folks will be too when they hear about it.
All right. Did we lose some? We lost a little connectivity. Can you hear me, Josh?
I'm back. Yeah. Sorry about that, Dave.
Got it. No problem. I was just saying we had Greg Ugaldi joining us today, who is the chair of the National Association of Home Builders, the past chair. He is the guy that updates president a couple times a year. So, Greg, thank you for joining us. It's always a plus for the people that we have on the show when Greg joins us. Greg, this is a cool product. I think you guys at the top of the food chain should be talking a little bit more with Planted, and they did a heck of a show at the 412 Startup Pitch. All right, moving on. We got Moonlight Ranch out there. What's happening, Moonlight Ranch? Great show out of Montana. Love those guys. Hey, stay tuned for some of their discovery shows coming out. So it's going to be really, really cool on their builds. Mateo Atwi, maybe Louisiana climate will be good for something. Grass grows overnight here. There you go. You got to check out.
We're looking at Louisiana too, Mateo. So that's on our roadmap.
Mateo and his brother, I could be wrong, but they're 26 years old. They started their own manufacturing facility for housing. You guys should talk. That'd be kind of cool. They have a really great thought process. Here's a question for you. Hi, Dave and Josh. Who designed and engineered the production equipment?
So that's our team, right? That is the secret sauce of Planted, or certainly a big part of it, is that we have a SpaceX-led engineering and production team, and then we have an incredible team of engineers and production technicians who fill in underneath that. So we develop, design, build all of the machines that will inform our own production technology. And for us, we believe that's an opportunity to take out cost, to take out carbon emissions from the factory, and design a system ultimately that's much more efficient in terms of building materials.
Great. Appreciate the question. Chris Magwood has a question. To scale up an idea like this, is there a danger of displacing food crops from the available farmland?
That's something we've thought about too, in terms of how we design our system and where we start. One of the reasons why we're excited about building here in North Carolina and setting up our production system here in North Carolina is that it gives us a chance to partner with tobacco farmers. There are still many tobacco farmers, hundreds of thousands of acres of tobacco farms in this part of the country, and farmers who are looking for what's next, recognizing that that's a declining industry for obvious reasons. And many of these farmers are also in a moment in time where they're starting to transition out of farming and hoping the next generation, their children or other people in their family, will take over that farm. And so we come in and we hit that sweet spot around environmental and economic sustainability that lights them up and says, this is an opportunity that they can get behind. And so for us, it's starting with replacing tobacco before we look at anything else. And that's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, last two comments here, Josh, and then we're going to wrap it up here. Peter Mullen in the house. Hey, Peter, good to see you. How many people are on your team of mechanical engineers?
So we have a team that's growing. That is, I would say we ask them to do a lot. So you're going to see a team that grows over time. I'm actually not going to say quite exactly how many engineers we have on the team and get into too technically how we go about doing that build, but finding the right engineers with the right skill sets. And for us, it's engineers who can design and build. Folks will come from different backgrounds, but fundamentally we need an engineer that can, in some respects, be a jack of all trades, really do it all. It's a different way of building, and it gives engineers an opportunity to do something that they may never get another chance in their lifetime to do, and take a product from start to finish and touch every aspect of the machines that they have their hands on.
Here's your Bill Gates thing. You got the chair of the NAHB to do some research for you, Josh. You should be proud of yourself.
I'm thrilled, delighted about that.
Bill Gates. As the urban population continues to grow in the coming decades, the world's building stock is expected to double by 2060, the equivalent of adding another New York City monthly between now and then. So that was the quote that you gave earlier, and we just copied and pasted it here, it looks like, with Greg. Greg, thanks, man. Appreciate you helping us out there.
Thank you, Greg.
I love it. I love it. Josh, what didn't we talk about? What do you want to make sure before we end this podcast that people know about Josh Dorfman, your team at Planted? Anything you want, the floor is yours.
I would just emphasize that, I think there's a ton of opportunity to drive really important change. We've latched onto a problem at Planted that inspires us. We know that it's not an overnight solution. We're looking at building a system, right? From the agriculture supply chain to the factories, to the partners and customers and builders who work with us, to drive systemic change. And, so I guess I would leave by saying, if this is exciting to your listeners, to anyone who's listening, and you want to join us and you want to be in something with us for the long term, come talk to us. I mean, we're eager to bring on more partners, but we're not going anywhere. And we are deeply motivated, recognizing that, for us to take this business up to the mill scale, right? Our ambition is to get to 1 billion board feet and beyond. That's going to take a ton of work, and we want the right partners and the people with the right vision and mindset who are aligned with us to come along and do it with us.
Love it. Josh, awesome. I appreciate you joining us today and sharing Planted with us. And I'm glad I had the honor to now twice moderate, having you either on stage or on our show. So thank you for that. And thank you to the team at Planted as well.
Dave, thank you. And I would just say it's awesome to be in your orbit now and to have a chance to talk with you, and appreciate everything you're doing as well. So
once you're in, you're in. It's like family. You might be surprised how many people start reaching out to you and connecting, but that's what we're all about here. We're here to bring knowledge, wisdom, and what's happening in the world to the rest of us that are out there busy working every day. Our job is to make sure we're showcasing the people, the products, and the processes, building it better. And Josh, you guys are one of them. So Josh, don't go anywhere. We'll come back to you after the outro. But for the rest of you, if you're not following us on YouTube, go there and follow us. Hit that subscribe button. It helps us grow our channel and to keep bringing you innovative people like Josh Dorfman. Outside of that, we'll see you Friday, 1 p.m. BS Friday with Mark Bare Naked Willie. You don't want to miss it. We always have a good time, and we always talk about building science. Josh, hang tight. I'll come back to you. Everybody else, it's hump day. That means you got 2.5 days left. You're on the East Coast anyhow, to get it done and to build it better. We'll see you next time. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies